I, Rebecca Reynolds, 34, felt my phone buzz in my pocket just as my sister Amanda leaned across our parents' Thanksgiving table with that smirk I'd known since childhood. "So, Becca," she said, her voice dripping with fake concern as she passed the mashed potatoes, "are you still using food stamps, or have things finally picked up with that little computer thing you're doing?" The table fell silent as all eyes turned to me. With trembling hands, I reached into my purse and pulled out the advance copy of Forbes magazine that had arrived yesterday. I placed it on the table, my face staring back at all of them from the cover, alongside the headline, "Rebecca Reynolds, How This Tech Founder Built a Billion-Dollar Empire from Nothing." The look on Amanda's face was worth every struggle of the past 15 years. Before I tell you how I went from food stamps to Forbes, drop a comment letting me know where you're watching from. Hit that like and subscribe button if you've ever had someone underestimate you. Trust me, by the end of this story, you'll see why proving them wrong feels so sweet. Growing up in suburban Boston, our family roles were established early. Amanda was the golden child, 3 years older, prettier, more socially adept, and seemingly perfect in every way. She was the straight-A student, homecoming queen, class president, and captain of the debate team. Our parents' pride in her was palpable, radiating from every family photo where she stood center stage while I lurked in the background. I wasn't a bad kid. I was just different. While Amanda thrived in the spotlight, I preferred the glow of a computer screen. I taught myself coding at 12, built my first website at 13, and was fascinated by the emerging tech industry. But my achievements rarely received the same celebration as Amanda's. I vividly remember my 16th birthday. After months of hints, I hoped for a laptop to further my programming projects. Instead, I received a makeup kit and a dress my mother insisted would help me come out of my shell. That same year, when Amanda got accepted to a summer program at Harvard, my parents threw a massive party with all their friends in attendance. When I won the state computer science competition 3 months later, it was acknowledged with a quick, "That's nice, dear," over dinner. The pattern continued throughout high school. Amanda's bedroom walls were covered with trophies, ribbons, and certificates of achievement. My parents attended every one of her events, from debate tournaments to student council speeches. Meanwhile, when I qualified for a national coding competition in Chicago, my mother sighed about the inconvenient timing, and my father questioned whether it was worth the investment. The worst part wasn't even the tangible differences in treatment. It was the overheard conversations that cut deepest. One night when I was 17, I came home early from a coding meetup to find my parents talking in the kitchen. I paused in the hallway when I heard my name. "I'm just worried about Rebecca," my mother said. Amanda had so many college offers by this time in her senior year. "Rebecca only seems interested in those computer programs. What kind of future is that for a girl?" My father's response was equally dismissive. "It's probably just a phase. Not everyone can be like Amanda. Rebecca will figure out something practical eventually." Those words embedded themselves into my psyche. Not everyone can be like Amanda. I wasn't expected to succeed. I was the family disappointment before I'd even had a chance to try. Amanda knew her position in the family hierarchy and wielded it like a weapon. Her comments were always carefully crafted to sound supportive while actually undermining me. "Don't worry about not getting invited to prom, Becca," she'd say in front of our parents. "Some people bloom later in life. Maybe in college." Then she'd give me that sympathetic smile that never reached her eyes. Or, "Becca's actually really smart. She just doesn't apply herself in the right areas," she'd tell her friends loudly when I was within earshot. If she'd just try something besides computers, she might actually be good at it. Each comment was a paper cut, small on its own, but agonizing in accumulation. The summer before college was a turning point. Amanda had just finished her freshman year at Harvard and returned home with a prestigious internship at a Boston consulting firm. At a family barbecue, surrounded by relatives, she cornered me by the drinks table. "Harvard's economics department has connections to all the big banks," she said, sipping her drink. "Dad's college friend already promised me an interview at Goldman after graduation. What's your plan again?" "Sitting in a darkroom typing code." She laughed. "Good luck paying rent with that." Something snapped inside me that day. As I watched Amanda glide back to the crowd of admiring relatives, I made a silent promise to myself. I would succeed on my own terms. I would build something significant. And someday, she would have to acknowledge it. That night, I outlined the first rough business plan for what would eventually become Synapse Systems. I didn't know then how I'd get there, but the seed was planted. My motivation wasn't pure. It was fueled partly by resentment and the desire to prove my worth, but it was powerful. The next morning, I applied for every tech scholarship I could find. I was done waiting for my parents' approval or support. If I was going to succeed, it would be on my own terms, with or without my family behind me. When my acceptance letter to Massachusetts State University arrived, my parents' reaction was predictably tepid. "Well, it's not Harvard," my father said, "but at least they gave you some scholarship money." The comparison to Amanda was implied but unmistakable. Amanda, home for spring break from Harvard, examined my acceptance packet with a practiced smile. "State is practical," she offered. "And you'll save money living at home, since they didn't offer you full housing." What she didn't know was that I'd purposely chosen MSU for their renowned computer science program, which actually ranked higher than Harvard's in that specific field. But explaining this felt futile. In our family narrative, Harvard trumped everything, and Amanda's path was the only one that mattered. My parents had created college funds for both of us, but Amanda's was significantly larger, justified by Harvard's higher tuition. Even with my partial scholarship, the disparity meant I needed to work part-time to cover expenses while Amanda could focus solely on her studies and social life. I took a job at the campus IT help desk, plus weekend shifts at a local coffee shop. Between classes, homework, and 25 hours of work weekly, sleep became a luxury. Meanwhile, Amanda's Instagram showed her at Harvard formals, networking events, and spring break in Cancun with her sorority sisters. Despite the workload, I thrived academically. Computer science clicked for me in a way no other subject ever had. By sophomore year, I caught the attention of Professor Diana Richardson, who became the first person to genuinely see my potential. After I aced her advanced algorithms midterm with the highest score in class, she asked me to stay after lecture. "You have a gift for this, Rebecca," she said, reviewing my code. "The way you approach problems is intuitive yet methodical. Have you considered where you want to take these skills?" It was the first time an authority figure had validated my passion instead of questioning it. I nearly cried on the spot. Professor Richardson became my mentor, recommending me for competitive internships and research opportunities. Under her guidance, I began developing what would eventually become the foundation for Synapse Systems, an AI-driven financial analysis tool that could identify market patterns human analysts might miss. By senior year, my prototype won the university's innovation competition, earning a small grant to continue development. The local tech blog covered the win, marking my first media mention. I proudly showed the article to my parents. "That's interesting," my mother said, skimming it quickly. "But is there money in this sort of thing?" 2 weeks later, when Amanda was featured in Harvard's alumni magazine for organizing a charity fundraiser, the article was framed and displayed prominently on our living room wall. Graduation day brought its own brand of family dynamics. As I waited in line with my computer science classmates, I spotted my parents in the audience, my father checking his watch repeatedly. They had made it clear that they could only stay for an hour before leaving for Amanda's law school graduation dinner, an event scheduled unfortunately close to my ceremony. After receiving my diploma cum laude, though Amanda had graduated summa cum laude, I found my family for photos. Amanda had come along, elegant in a designer dress that made my department store graduation outfit look shabby by comparison. "Congratulations, little sis," she said, air-kissing my cheek. "A tech degree is so useful these days. Everyone needs IT support, right?" I bit my tongue, knowing she was deliberately mischaracterizing my degree. Computer science and IT support were entirely different fields, but explaining the difference again seemed pointless. "Thanks for coming," I said instead, forcing a smile for the family photo. My post-graduation plan was to work for a tech firm while developing my software on the side. I had lined up a junior developer position at a Boston startup with decent pay and benefits. 2 weeks before my start date, the company lost its funding and laid off half its staff, including all new hires. With student loans entering repayment and my parents making it clear that moving back home was a temporary last resort, I frantically applied for any tech job available. But the 2008 recession had tightened the market and entry-level positions were scarce. After 3 months of rejections, my savings depleted, I faced a humiliating reality. I needed assistance. The day I applied for food stamps was the lowest point of my life. Sitting in the government office, filling out forms detailing my financial situation, I felt like a complete failure. That same week, Amanda landed a position at a prestigious law firm with a 6-figure starting salary. At Sunday dinner, she announced her news, followed by putting down a deposit on a luxury condo. I brought champagne, she said, as our mother rushed to get the good glasses. Halfway through dinner, Amanda turned to me. "How's the job hunt going, Becca?" I mumbled something about exploring options and developing my own project. "Well," she said, "the firm is hiring paralegals if you want me to put in a word. The pay isn't great, but it includes health insurance." And she added with a pointed look, "No one has to use food stamps when they work there." My face burned. I hadn't told my family about the assistance, but Amanda had seen me at the government office during her pro bono hours. Rather than discreetly speaking to me privately, she'd chosen to expose my situation at the dinner table. "I'm working on something," I said, my voice tight. "My software has potential." Amanda laughed. "Oh, right. The computer thing. Well, the paralegal offer stands when you're ready for a real job." That night, in my tiny rented room in a shared apartment, I worked until dawn on my business plan. The laptop was secondhand, the internet connection borrowed from a neighbor, but my determination had hardened into something unbreakable. I taped a note above my desk, "From food stamps to freedom." It became my daily reminder that rock bottom was just a starting point, not a destination. In the fluorescent-lit basement of the public library, I refined my business plan for Synapse Systems. My vision was an AI-powered financial analysis software that could process vast amounts of market data to identify patterns and predict trends with greater accuracy than human analysts. The potential applications ranged from investment firms to insurance companies to individual financial planning. With my concept solidified, I began approaching investors. The rejections came swiftly and consistently. Too ambitious for someone with no track record. The market is saturated with financial tech. Come back when you've got experience in finance. Great idea, but we don't see you as CEO material. That last comment, from a venture capitalist who spent our entire meeting looking at his phone, stung particularly hard. I knew what he meant. He didn't see a young woman without connections as leadership material. By my count, I had been rejected by 27 different investors when I met James Wilson. A partner at a smaller venture capital firm, Wilson had made his fortune in the 90s tech boom and had a reputation for backing unconventional founders. Our meeting wasn't going well. I was exhausted from working night shifts at a 24-hour diner, and my pitch lacked its usual polish. As I fumbled with my prototype demonstration, I saw Wilson checking his watch. "Look," I said, abandoning my prepared speech. "I know I don't look like your typical tech founder. I didn't go to an Ivy League school. I don't have family connections or a safety net. What I do have is a solution to a problem that's costing financial institutions millions in inefficiencies and missed opportunities. I've lived on ramen and worked 80-hour weeks for 2 years developing this software. I will outwork, outthink, and outlast anyone else you might invest in because I literally have everything to lose." Wilson studied me for a long moment. "Show me the demo again," he said finally. 3 hours later, I walked out with a commitment for $150,000 in seed funding, a modest sum in the venture world, but enough to rent a small office space and hire 2 part-time developers to help refine the prototype. Those early days of Synapse Systems defined bootstrapping. Our office was a converted storage room above a Chinese restaurant, with desks made from doors laid across sawhorses. Our 3 computers were mismatched models bought from university surplus sales. On multiple occasions, I slept on an air mattress in the corner to save commuting time. My first 2 team members were former classmates who believed in the vision enough to work for minimal pay plus equity. Nate, a brilliant coder who had been passed over by bigger companies due to his unconventional resume, and Deepa, a data scientist who had hit the glass ceiling at her previous firm. We survived on pizza, coffee, and determination. Every morning at our stand-up meeting, I reminded them, we're building something that will change how financial decisions are made. The people who rejected us will be our clients someday. 6 months of intensive development produced our first viable product. It wasn't polished, but it worked, analyzing financial data sets with 23% more accuracy than standard industry tools. We needed a client to prove its real-world value. Through Professor Richardson's network, I secured a meeting with the innovation officer at Regional Bank, a mid-sized financial institution looking to modernize their systems. They agreed to a paid pilot program using our software to analyze a subset of their investment portfolio. The night before implementation, we discovered a critical bug that could potentially misclassify certain types of transactions. The 3 of us worked for 36 straight hours to fix it, testing and retesting until we were confident in the solution. I delivered the corrected version myself, having not showered or changed clothes, running on nothing but adrenaline and vending machine snacks. 2 weeks later, Regional Bank's innovation officer called. Our software had identified an overlooked investment opportunity that yielded a 4% higher return than their standard analysis would have achieved. They wanted to expand the pilot to their entire portfolio. It was our first real validation. I called my parents that night, hoping to share the milestone. That's nice, dear, my mother said, distracted. Did you hear Amanda just made junior partner? Youngest in the firm's history. We're taking her to Morton's to celebrate. You should come if you're free. I declined, citing work commitments. What I didn't mention was that I couldn't afford Morton's prices, and I wasn't ready to face Amanda's inevitable condescension about my little startup. Speaking of Amanda, she chose that week to check in on me, stopping by our office unannounced. I watched her take in the cramped space, the secondhand furniture, the takeout containers, her expression shifting from curiosity to barely concealed pity. So this is it, she asked, setting her designer handbag on our conference table, a plastic folding table from Costco. This is headquarters for now, I replied, trying to sound confident. We just landed Regional Bank as a client. Oh, Dad has an account there. It's fine, I guess, for a regional player. She examined our whiteboard covered in code snippets and flowcharts. How much are you paying yourself as? What is your title exactly? CEO and founder, I said. And I'm taking minimal salary until we're profitable. Amanda nodded knowingly. Well, not everyone is motivated by money. There's something authentic about struggling for your art or tech or whatever this is. After she left, Nate found me staring out our single window that overlooked an alley. Who was that hurricane of condescension? He asked. My sister, I replied. Harvard Law, junior partner, perfect daughter. She seems exhausting, Nate said simply. I laughed for the first time that day. You have no idea. Despite Amanda's doubts, Regional Bank's successful pilot led to our first annual contract worth $75,000, modest in enterprise software terms, but enough to keep us afloat. More importantly, it gave us a reference client. 2 more small firms signed on over the next 4 months. We weren't profitable yet, but we were gaining traction. Then disaster struck. A major market fluctuation revealed a fundamental flaw in our algorithm's handling of volatility. Our software made recommendations that cost one client a significant amount in a key portfolio. They not only canceled their contract, but threatened legal action for damages. Overnight, we went from growing startup to potential bankruptcy. Our minimal cash reserves would be wiped out by even a modest settlement, let alone a protracted legal battle. For 3 days, I barely left the office, reviewing every line of code, identifying the problem, and working on a fix. On the 4th day, I presented the client with a comprehensive analysis of what went wrong, a completely rebuilt volatility model, and an offer to provide 6 months of service for free. To my surprise, they accepted. We've worked with big financial software companies that would have denied any issue and hidden behind their legal team, their CFO told me. Your transparency and the quality of your solution showed us who you really are. It was a turning point. We not only saved the client relationship, but strengthened it. By the end of our first full year, Synapse Systems had 5 paying clients and had achieved its first month of profitability. Just $3,428 in net income, but a positive number nonetheless. I framed the first profitable month's financial statement and hung it in our still modest office. Below it, I added a new note, from food stamps to first profit. We weren't where I wanted to be yet, but we'd survived the hardest part, proving we could build something valuable enough that people would pay for it. That night, I treated the team to dinner at an actual restaurant instead of our usual takeout. As we toasted with cheap champagne, I felt a surge of confidence. This is just the beginning, I told them. Next year, we're going to be too big for anyone to ignore. I didn't know then how prophetic those words would be, or that the biggest challenges and victories were still ahead. The next 18 months saw Synapse Systems grow from struggling startup to emerging industry player. We moved to a legitimate office space in Boston's growing tech district, expanded to a team of 15, and refined our product into what we now called FinIntel, a comprehensive financial intelligence platform that could analyze market trends with unprecedented accuracy. My leadership style evolved with the company. No longer just the technical founder doing everything myself, I had to learn to delegate, manage a team, and think strategically about our future. I worked with an executive coach who helped me transition from coder who started a company to CEO who understands coding. Professor Richardson, still a valued mentor, connected me with business school resources that filled gaps in my knowledge. I devoured books on management, finance, and leadership, often reading late into the night after full workdays. The imposter syndrome never fully disappeared, but I became more comfortable in my role with each successful client meeting and strategic decision. Our big breakthrough came with the development of our flagship product, FinIntel Predict. While our competitors offered retrospective analysis of financial data, our software could predict market movements with 76% accuracy, a game changer for investment firms. The proprietary algorithm I had initially conceptualized in college had evolved into something truly revolutionary. Our growing reputation earned us an invitation to FinTech Forward, the industry's premier conference. It was our chance to showcase our technology to potential enterprise clients who could transform our business overnight. I arrived at the conference energized and prepared, only to face a familiar pattern of dismissal. At the welcome reception, I was repeatedly mistaken for an assistant rather than a CEO. During panel discussions, my comments were overlooked while male founders with less impressive metrics were praised for their visionary thinking. The low point came during a roundtable for emerging financial technology leaders. When I introduced myself, the moderator, a well-known investor, smiled indulgently and said, "It's great to see young women interested in fintech. Are you considering an MBA to supplement your background?" Actually, I replied evenly, I have a computer science degree and built the algorithm that powers our platform. We're currently serving 12 financial institutions with a 94% client retention rate. The table fell awkwardly silent before the conversation shifted to another participant. Later that evening, at the conference happy hour, I was approached by Maxwell Clark, CEO of FinTech Dynamics, one of our main competitors. Tall, polished, and Harvard-educated, of course, he used the confidence of someone who had never been underestimated. "Impressive numbers you mentioned earlier," he said, offering me a drink. "FinIntel Predict is creating quite a buzz. We should discuss potential synergies between our companies." The conversation seemed collegial, but something felt off. He asked detailed questions about our technology, especially our predictive algorithm. I kept my answers general, talking about results rather than methodology. 2 weeks after the conference, our lead developer discovered an unauthorized attempt to access our code repository. The digital trail led back to an IP address associated with FinTech Dynamics. They hadn't just been interested in collaboration, they had been trying to steal our intellectual property. We immediately strengthened our security and consulted a lawyer specializing in tech IP. The evidence was concerning, but not definitive enough for a slam-dunk legal case. We were advised that litigation would be expensive and could drag on for years, potentially bankrupting us even if we eventually won. That weekend, I went to my parents' house for dinner, hoping for support or at least a sympathetic ear. Instead, I found Amanda and her husband already there, dominating the conversation with news of Amanda's corporate law department expansion. When I finally managed to mention our IP challenge, my mother's first question was, "Could this put you out of business?" "It's serious," I admitted, "but we're fighting it." Amanda set down her wine glass. "You know, Becca, this is exactly why people get proper business training before starting companies. A Harvard MBA would have prepared you for these situations." "Our lawyer says we have a strong case," I said defensively. "What's your lawyer's background?" Amanda asked. "Boston University Law, specializing in tech IP." Amanda exchanged a knowing look with our father. "Well, if you need recommendations for Harvard Law graduates who actually understand business protection, let me know. Corporate law is what I do, after all." "Your sister's just trying to help," my father said, noticing my expression. "This startup thing is interesting, but maybe it's time to consider something more stable." There's no shame in admitting an experiment didn't work out. Their words stung because they revealed a fundamental truth. They still saw my company as a hobby, not a legitimate business. After 3 years of grinding work, they were still waiting for me to get serious and follow a path more like Amanda's. As I drove home, my phone rang. It was my father, calling alone. "Rebecca," he said, his voice quieter than usual. "I wanted to say something without your mother or sister listening." I braced for more criticism. "That thing you built, the prediction software." I looked into it, read some articles. "It's impressive, really impressive." He paused. "I may not understand all the technical details, but I recognize determination when I see it. You've always had that, ever since you were little." It was the first genuine compliment he'd given me about my work. I nearly drove off the road in shock. "If you need help with legal expenses for this IP battle," he continued, "I have some savings. Not a lot, but enough to help. No need to tell your mother or Amanda." "Thanks, Dad," I said, my throat tight. "That means a lot." "Just don't give up," he said. "You've come too far to quit now." That conversation gave me the push I needed. The next morning, I called an emergency meeting with our leadership team. Instead of playing defense, we would go on the offensive. We filed our own lawsuit against FinTech Dynamics for attempted intellectual property theft, issued a press release detailing the evidence, and reached out to industry publications to tell our story. The strategy was risky. We were publicly challenging a larger, better-funded competitor. But it worked. The industry buzz caught the attention of an influential tech blogger who investigated independently and published a scathing exposé on FinTech Dynamics' history of borrowing innovations from smaller companies. Other founders came forward with similar stories, and the narrative shifted from David versus Goliath to ethical business versus corporate theft. 3 months later, FinTech Dynamics offered a settlement, including a public apology and financial compensation that covered our legal expenses plus damages. The victory was vindicating on multiple levels. We had protected our technology, gained industry respect, and demonstrated that Synapse Systems was a force to be reckoned with. The publicity significantly raised our profile, leading to inquiries from larger potential clients who had previously overlooked us. Most importantly, we showed the industry that innovation and integrity could win against entrenched power and privilege. In my office, I added another note below our framed first profit statement, from food stamps to fighting back. The months following our legal victory marked a transformation for Synapse Systems. Industry recognition of our technology's value translated into explosive growth. We landed Goldman Sachs as a client, ironic given Amanda's earlier boasts about her connections there. They implemented FinIntel Predict across their algorithmic trading division, providing us with both substantial revenue and invaluable prestige. Other major financial institutions followed. Our team expanded to 40 employees, necessitating another office move. We raised a series of funding round of $12 million at a $100 million valuation, a far cry from the days of sleeping on an office air mattress and surviving on ramen. The personal milestones paralleled our business success. I purchased my first home, a modest but beautiful condo in Cambridge with big windows and space for a proper home office. After years of financial stress, I finally had stability and even some luxury in my life. I could afford nice clothes, regular haircuts, and dinners at restaurants where the menus didn't list prices. Media attention followed naturally. TechCrunch profiled Synapse as the AI upstart revolutionizing financial analysis. The Boston Business Journal named me one of their 40 under 40 business leaders. Local television stations requested interviews about being a woman in the male-dominated fintech world. My parents' attitudes subtly shifted. My mother began mentioning Rebecca's company to her friends. My father sent me clippings of business articles that reminded him of our work. They didn't fully understand what I did, but they recognized that others considered it significant. The most surprising shift came from Amanda. After years of dismissive comments and backhanded compliments, she suddenly took an interest in my career. She called more frequently, asked questions about the business, and even requested my opinion on legal matters related to her clients' tech investments. "We should grab lunch," she suggested during one call. It's been too long since we really caught up. Over an expensive meal at her favorite restaurant, which she insisted on paying for, Amanda was uncharacteristically warm. "I've been following your success," she said, sipping her wine. "The Goldman deal is impressive. I always knew you were smart, but I had no idea you'd build something this substantial." The validation I'd once desperately craved from her now felt oddly hollow. "Thanks," I said simply. "I've been thinking," she continued, "about how our family could be more supportive. Mom and Dad are from a different generation. They don't really get tech. But I understand what you've built." She leaned forward. "I'm proud of you, Becca." Something in her tone made me wary, but I pushed the feeling aside. Maybe she was genuinely trying to repair our relationship. Maybe my success had finally earned her respect. A week later, Amanda called with what she described as an opportunity. "Tom's been unhappy at his firm," she said, referring to her husband. "He's looking for something new, and with your company growing so quickly, I thought maybe there could be a good fit there." Tom had a background in traditional banking, not technology or startups. He was competent but unexceptional, the sort of person who advanced through connections rather than innovation. "What kind of role is he interested in?" I asked cautiously. "Oh, something in leadership," Amanda replied casually. "CO, perhaps?" "He has excellent management experience." I nearly choked. "Chief Operating Officer, the second highest position in the company, for someone with no relevant experience or demonstrated interest in our mission." "Amanda, we have a specific hiring process," I explained. "Everyone goes through multiple interviews and technical evaluations. For executive roles, we look for people with direct experience in financial technology and startup scaling." "But you know Tom," she countered. "He's family. Surely that counts for something." "It doesn't, actually," I said firmly. "We've built our culture on meritocracy. I can't bring in someone for a leadership position based on family connection. It would undermine everything we stand for." The temperature of the conversation dropped several degrees. "I see," Amanda said coolly. "Well, if you change your mind, let me know. Tom has several other options, of course." 2 days later, I received a call from a reporter at TechWire, a widely read industry blog, asking for comment on allegations that Synapse Systems had exaggerated the capabilities of our predictive algorithm and misrepresented results to clients. "We've received information from a source close to the company," the reporter said. "They claim your published accuracy rates are mathematically impossible given current AI limitations." The claims were technically complex, but completely false, clearly designed to cast doubt on our technology among potential clients who might not understand the technical details. "These allegations are categorically untrue," I told the reporter. "Our results have been independently verified by clients, including Goldman Sachs. We're happy to provide documentation of our testing methodology and actual performance metrics." After the call, I immediately gathered our leadership team to trace the source of the leak. Our internal investigation led to a disturbing discovery. Someone had accessed confidential company documents using credentials tied to a computer in our office, during a time when Amanda had been visiting to see where my little sister works. The pieces fell into place. Amanda hadn't been reconnecting out of genuine interest in repairing our relationship. She'd been gathering information, and when I refused to hire her husband, she'd used that information to try to damage my company. The betrayal hit harder than any previous family slight. This wasn't just dismissing my achievements or making snide comments at dinner. This was an active attempt to harm something I'd built from nothing, something that employed dozens of people and had become my life's work. I called Amanda that evening, giving her one chance to explain. "I have no idea what you're talking about," she said, her voice perfectly controlled. "Maybe your company really does have technical issues you're not facing." "The leak came from your computer, Amanda," I said flatly. "During your last visit." A brief silence. "That's ridiculous. And even if someone did raise concerns, maybe they're doing you a favor. Better to address problems before they become public scandals. The only scandal here is you trying to sabotage my company because I wouldn't give your husband a job he's not qualified for." "Always the victim, aren't you, Becca?" she sighed. "Some things never change." I ended the call and immediately implemented our crisis management plan. We prepared comprehensive documentation of our technology's performance, secured statements from key clients confirming our results, and issued a detailed rebuttal to the reporter. Rather than hiding from the allegations, we addressed them head-on with complete transparency. I personally called our major clients to explain the situation and invited independent technical experts to review our methodology. The TechWire article, when published, ended up largely vindicating us. The reporter had done her homework, consulting AI experts who confirmed our claimed results were indeed possible with our approach. The piece mentioned the anonymous allegations, but focused more on our transparent response and technical verification. What could have been a devastating blow became instead a showcase for our company's integrity. In the following weeks, we actually gained clients who were impressed by our handling of the situation. The experience changed me. The last lingering desire for Amanda's approval or my family's validation evaporated. I had built something valuable enough that others would try to tear it down, and I had defended it successfully. I no longer needed external validation of my worth. In my office, beneath the framed first profit statement and the fighting back note, I added a third message: from food stamps to freedom from approval. The true measure of success wasn't proving others wrong. It was building something that mattered, regardless of their opinion. The attempted sabotage became a pivotal moment for Synapse Systems. The transparency we demonstrated during the crisis earned us trust in an industry where trust is the ultimate currency. Financial institutions that had been hesitant to work with a relatively young company now saw us as a partner with integrity. Our growth accelerated beyond anything I could have imagined during those early food stamp days. We expanded internationally, opening offices in London, Singapore, and Toronto. Our team grew to over 200 employees worldwide. We developed new products that applied our predictive technology to other financial sectors, including insurance risk assessment and personal wealth management. The defining moment came when we acquired DataMine Technologies, a competitor with complementary technology. The $45 million acquisition, funded through a combination of our own revenue and a targeted Series B round, was covered by all the major financial and tech publications. Overnight, we went from promising startup to established industry force. Our company valuation crossed the billion-dollar threshold, making us an official unicorn in startup terminology. On paper, my equity stake was worth over $300 million, a number so surreal I couldn't quite process it. The scared young woman applying for food stamps seemed like someone from another lifetime. As our profile rose, I became more intentional about using our success for impact beyond profit. We established the Synapse Foundation, providing scholarships and mentorship for low-income students pursuing careers in technology. The first cohort included 20 students from backgrounds similar to mine: bright, driven young people who lacked only opportunity and support. I also became more visible as an advocate for women in technology, speaking at conferences and mentoring female founders. The barriers I had faced were still all too common, and I was determined to help others navigate them more easily than I had. My parents finally seemed to fully grasp what I had built. My father, in particular, became an enthusiastic supporter, proudly wearing Synapse-branded gear and reading everything published about the company. My mother was quieter in her pride, but showed it by framing magazine articles about me alongside the family photos that had once featured only Amanda's achievements. Amanda and I maintained a cordial but distant relationship. She never admitted to the leak, and I never confronted her about it again. At family gatherings, we exchanged pleasantries but avoided substantive conversation. She had shifted from dismissing my work to rarely mentioning it at all, perhaps the closest thing to respect she could muster. In September, I received an email that initially seemed like spam. A journalist from Forbes wanted to discuss the possibility of featuring me in an upcoming issue. After verifying it was legitimate, I agreed to an initial conversation. The Forbes piece was originally planned as part of their Innovators to Watch section, a significant honor, but not the main focus of the issue. The interviewer, Catherine Martinez, spent 3 hours with me at our Boston headquarters, diving deep into our technology, business model, and my personal journey. "Your story is remarkable," she said as we concluded. "The food stamps to fintech success angle is compelling, but what really stands out is how you've changed the paradigm in an industry that resisted change." 2 weeks later, Catherine called again. "My editor wants to expand your feature," she explained. "We're considering you for the cover of our Reinventing Finance issue." The next month became a whirlwind of interviews, photo shoots, and fact-checking sessions. The Forbes team was meticulous, verifying every detail of our company metrics and my personal background. They spoke with our clients, investors, and team members. The photo shoot alone took an entire day, with multiple outfit changes and settings throughout our office. Throughout the process, I maintained a sense of cautious excitement. Media coverage could be unpredictable, and I'd learned not to count on anything until it actually materialized. 3 days before Thanksgiving, Catherine called with the news. I would indeed be on the cover of the December issue, with an 8-page feature inside. The magazine would hit newsstands the following Monday, but they were sending me an advance copy by courier. The timing coincided with my parents' annual Thanksgiving dinner, an event I had considered skipping this year due to the lingering awkwardness with Amanda. My mother's guilt-inducing phone call had convinced me otherwise. "It would mean so much to your father," she said. "He's been telling everyone about your company. And Amanda's bringing the children. You hardly ever see your niece and nephew." I agreed to attend, not mentioning the Forbes cover. Part of me wanted to share the news immediately, but a stronger part wanted to see their unfiltered reactions when they saw it in person. The advance copy arrived Wednesday afternoon. Seeing my own face on the Forbes cover was surreal. The headline, "Rebecca Reynolds: How This Tech Founder Built a Billion-Dollar Empire from Nothing," alongside a photo of me looking confidently at the camera in front of Synapse's glass-walled headquarters. The article inside was even better than I'd hoped, thoughtful, accurate, and highlighting not just our business success, but our company culture and social impact initiatives. Catherine had captured the essence of our journey without sensationalizing or oversimplifying it. I carefully placed the magazine in my bag Thursday morning as I prepared to drive to my parents' suburban home. This Thanksgiving would be different from all the others. The little sister who had been dismissed, overlooked, and underestimated was returning as a Forbes cover subject and successful entrepreneur. As I pulled into my parents' driveway, I took a deep breath. I wasn't seeking revenge or planning to gloat. This moment wasn't about proving Amanda wrong. It was about finally being seen for who I was and what I had accomplished. I checked my reflection in the rearview mirror, straightened my shoulders, and headed inside, the magazine tucked discreetly in my purse. Whatever happened next, I was ready. The familiar scent of my mother's roast turkey and cinnamon apple potpourri greeted me as I entered my childhood home. The living room was meticulously decorated with the same autumn-themed centerpieces and candles that had adorned our Thanksgiving table for decades. Some things never changed. Rebecca. Finally, my mother called from the kitchen. Everyone's already here. Everyone meant Amanda, her husband Tom, their 2 children, and my father, all gathered in the living room watching the Thanksgiving Day parade. Amanda looked up from her phone as I entered, offering a practiced smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Nice of you to join us, Becca," she said. "We were just talking about Tom's new position at Meridian Bank, Senior Vice President of Strategic Initiatives." "Congratulations," I said, giving Tom a polite nod. He'd landed on his feet despite my refusal to hire him, likely through Amanda's connections as usual. My father rose to give me a genuine hug. "Good to see you, Rebecca. How's the company?" Before I could answer, my mother announced dinner was ready. We filed into the dining room, taking our usual seats, my parents at the ends of the table, Amanda and her family on one side, me alone on the other. The physical arrangement perfectly mirrored the family dynamic that had shaped my childhood. The first half hour followed the familiar pattern of Amanda dominating the conversation. Her children's academic achievements, Tom's promotion, her latest high-profile legal case, their recent vacation to the Maldives. My mother asked encouraging questions, my father nodded appreciatively, and I picked at my food, feeling like I was 16 again. "So, Rebecca," Amanda said eventually, turning her attention to me during a lull, "still working those crazy startup hours? You should be careful. Those eye bags are starting to look permanent." I smiled tightly. "The hours are worth it. We're doing well." "That's nice," she said dismissively, though I was reading about the tech bubble possibly bursting again. "These things are cyclical, you know." My mother jumped in with forced brightness. "Rebecca's company is doing something with computers and money. Very technical. Artificial intelligence for financial analysis," my father corrected, surprising me with his accuracy. "They work with some major banks now." Amanda raised an eyebrow. "Well, everyone's calling everything AI these days. Very trendy term." She turned to pass the cranberry sauce to her daughter and added, almost casually, "So Becca, are you still using food stamps, or have things finally picked up with that little computer thing you're doing?" The table fell silent. Even Amanda seemed to realize she'd gone too far, a flicker of uncertainty crossing her face. It was the perfect moment. I reached into my purse beside my chair and pulled out the magazine, placing it on the table between the turkey and mashed potatoes. "Actually," I said calmly, "things have picked up quite a bit." My face stared back at all of us from the glossy Forbes cover, the words "billion-dollar empire" impossible to miss. For several seconds, no one moved or spoke. My father was the first to react, picking up the magazine with a look of wonder. "My God, Rebecca. Forbes?" Amanda's expression cycled rapidly through disbelief, shock, and something that looked suspiciously like panic. Her husband whistled softly. "When did this? How did?" my mother stammered, leaning over to see the magazine in my father's hands. "It hits newsstands Monday," I explained. "They sent me an advance copy." My father began reading excerpts aloud. "Reynolds has revolutionized financial technology with Synapse Systems' predictive AI, building a billion-dollar company that serves over 40% of major global financial institutions. From humble beginnings that included a period of relying on government assistance." At the mention of government assistance, Amanda flinched visibly. The food stamps comment that had been her weapon for years was now part of a triumphant origin story on the cover of Forbes. "Let me see that," she said, reaching for the magazine. She flipped through the feature with increasingly agitated movements, her face growing paler. My mother was still processing. $1 billion? Your company is worth $1 billion. $1.4 billion at last valuation, I corrected gently. "And you're on the cover of Forbes," my father said, shaking his head in amazement. Forbes. For the rest of dinner, the usual dynamic was completely reversed. My parents asked detailed questions about the company, the Forbes interview process, our international expansion. Amanda remained uncharacteristically quiet, picking at her food and checking her phone with excessive frequency. As we moved to the living room for dessert, Amanda excused herself to the back patio. After a moment's hesitation, I followed her. She stood with her back to me, arms wrapped around herself against the November chill. Quite the dramatic reveal, she said without turning around. You must have been planning that for weeks. The timing was coincidental, I replied. Though I can't say I didn't appreciate the opening you gave me. She turned then, and I was surprised to see her eyes were red. I suppose I deserve that. We stood in uncomfortable silence for a moment. Why? I finally asked. All these years, all the put-downs, the undermining. Even trying to damage my company. Why, Amanda? She looked away, then sighed deeply. Would you believe me if I said I don't really know? Try harder than that. Fine. She crossed her arms tighter. You were always the smart one. The creative one. The special one. I stared at her in disbelief. Are you serious? I was the disappointment. You were the golden child. Everyone knew that. Everyone except me, she said quietly. Do you have any idea what it's like to be perfect, Amanda? The straight-A student, the Harvard graduate, the youngest partner? One slip, one failure, and the entire facade crumbles. I never had the option to take risks or follow passions. I had to be exactly what was expected of me. That doesn't excuse how you treated me, I said. No, it doesn't, she agreed, surprising me again. I was jealous. You found your own path. You built something real, something that mattered to you. I followed a script written by our parents and society, and I've been terrified of deviating from it for as long as I can remember. Tears welled in her eyes. The food stamps comment, that was unforgivable. I knew it the moment I said it. I think I needed to believe you were failing because your success threatened everything I thought I knew about how life was supposed to work. I didn't know what to say. After years of imagining this confrontation, I'd never expected vulnerability from Amanda. I'm not asking for forgiveness, she continued. Just understanding, maybe. We were both shaped by the same dysfunctional family system, just in different ways. I need some time, I said honestly. This is a lot to process. She nodded. That's fair. Congratulations on the Forbes cover. It's incredible, actually. We rejoined the family in awkward silence, but something had shifted. The wall between us hadn't come down, but a small window had opened, the possibility of a different kind of relationship. After dessert, my father asked to speak with me privately in his study. He closed the door and took a deep breath. I owe you an apology, he said, the words clearly difficult for him. I underestimated you. We all did. It's okay, Dad, I started, but he held up his hand. No, it's not. We should have supported your dreams the way we supported Amanda's. We should have believed in you. He gestured to a framed photo on his desk, a picture I'd never seen before of me at my college graduation, looking young and determined. I've had that there for years, he admitted. I was proud of you, but I didn't know how to show it. I understood Amanda's world, law, traditional success. Yours was foreign to me. I failed you as a father by not trying harder to understand. Tears pricked my eyes. You didn't fail me. You helped with the legal battle, remember? That meant everything. Too little, too late, he said gruffly. But I want you to know I've followed everything about your company. I have Google alerts set up for Synapse systems. I've read every article. I've never been good at saying these things. Saying what things? I asked softly. That I'm proud of you, he said, his voice breaking slightly. So damn proud I can hardly stand it. We hugged for what felt like the first time in decades, not the perfunctory greeting hugs we'd exchanged at holidays, but a real embrace between father and daughter. When we rejoined the others, my mother was examining the Forbes article more carefully. This says you provide scholarships for low-income students, she asked. I nodded. The Synapse Foundation. We fund education for students who have potential but lack resources. We're supporting 20 students this year. That's wonderful, Rebecca, she said, and I could see she was truly processing who I was for perhaps the first time. Not the daughter who had failed to follow Amanda's path, but a woman who had created her own. Driving home that night, I reflected on the day's events. The Forbes cover had accomplished what I'd hoped, but not in the way I'd expected. It wasn't about vindication or proving my worth. It was about finally being seen, by my family and by myself. The following year brought remarkable changes. My relationship with Amanda remained complicated, but evolved into something more honest. She began therapy to address her perfectionism and anxiety. I worked on forgiving the past without forgetting its lessons. My parents made genuine efforts to understand my work, with my father even investing in our next funding round, a symbolic amount but meaningful in its intent. My mother proudly displayed the Forbes cover alongside Amanda's achievements in the living room. Synapse systems continued to thrive, but my perspective on success transformed. It wasn't about proving others wrong, but about fulfilling my own potential and helping others do the same. In the company's new headquarters, I created a small museum of our journey, from the original whiteboard with my first algorithm sketches to the food stamps application I'd kept as a reminder. The final display was the Forbes magazine, but next to it hung a new note that read simply, "From food stamps to fulfillment." The most meaningful moment came when Jessica, one of our foundation's first scholarship recipients, joined Synapse as an intern. A brilliant young woman from a disadvantaged background, she reminded me powerfully of myself at that age. "Your story inspired me," she told me on her first day. "Not just the success part, but knowing you struggled too. That you needed assistance once. It made me believe I could do this." "You absolutely can," I assured her. "And probably better than I did." As I walked her through our offices, introducing her to the team, I realized that this, not the Forbes cover, not the billion-dollar valuation, was the true measure of success. Creating opportunity for others and watching them thrive. The journey from food stamps to Forbes had never really been about revenge or validation. It had been about becoming the person I was meant to be, despite and perhaps because of the obstacles placed in my path. In the end, the most important person who needed to believe in me wasn't Amanda or my parents or even the readers of Forbes. It was myself. Have you ever been underestimated by family members or others close to you? How did you handle it? Did you try to prove them wrong, or did you find your own path regardless of their opinions? Share your experiences in the comments below. If this revenge story touched you, please like, subscribe, and share it with someone who might need a reminder that their worth isn't determined by others' perceptions. Thank you for joining me on this journey from food stamps to Forbes. Remember that your own journey, whatever it may be, is uniquely valuable and worthy of pursuit.